Howdy, and welcome to the Lost Rider podcast. It's an honor and privilege to address you in the capacity of an interviewer, reporter, and media member. Too many modern media outlets have forgone the integrity and responsibility required of credible information sources. What you will receive here are straightforward discussions with legislators, agency leaders, biologists, engineers, doctors, and countless other experts that have the answers to questions often circulated as kitchen table issues. The title Lost Rider may be thought of literally as well as in the metaphorical sense. While there has been the instance that I was momentarily a little turned around at night in a wilderness area, the idea of being a lost rider in life, well, that fits most folks at some time. These renderings are coming to you in the form of the 25-year-old radio program, The News from the Camp House. It still airs every Saturday morning at 6:30 a.m. Central Time on KULM 98.3 FM out of Columbus, Texas. The original intent was to relate outdoor topics to the general public. Immediately, it was found that all issues are relatable to the outdoors and that people are people. They all play a role and they all have a vested interest. It's this program's desire to answer common questions about how the world works, how it will operate in the future, and what's the holdup? So please listen, enjoy, and never hesitate to contact us with more questions and feedback. Good morning and welcome to this weekend's edition of News from the Camp House, the listening post of the Texas Sportsman Association. This is Herman Brune, and this weekend's edition is also brought to us by the Shaw's Bend Social Club. Country club folks who don't have a country club. All right, I'll tell you what, this weekend we've got a special guest, Brandt, how do you predict? McDuff?
MacDuff, Brandt MacDuff.
Okay, all right. Brandt, I'm going to let you introduce yourself to my listeners.
Yes, sir. So my name is Brandt MacDuff. I live in Brooklyn, New York. I am a wildlife conservation and taxidermy historian, and I study wildlife conservation economics, and I write about them for a broad audience. My book, The Shotgun Conservationist, Why Environmentalists Should Love Hunting, is kind of a friendly 101 intro to the connection between hunting and conservation. Told through a lot of personal stories as well, but it's also kind of a little mini textbook on conservation dollars and conservation in America versus other countries around the world, and just sort of how people relate to wildlife and the food they eat and all kinds of stuff that ends up getting wrapped into one sort of conservation package.
All right, now you're trying to bring your message to people from Brooklyn, New York.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, no, this is the catch for my listeners. I mean, because New York City, okay, and you're trying to instill this way of thinking into, largest city in the United States.
Yeah, it sounds like the Pace Picante commercial, if you remember that from years ago.
Yeah.
But it's, what else is funny is that New York City is really the birthplace of a lot of America's most beloved conservation policy and history, because the Boone and Crockett Club was founded there in New York City by Teddy Roosevelt and Grinnell at the American Museum of Natural History. A lot of the conservation policy we have in America came straight out of that museum and the people who worked there. Our first national wildlife refuge system came from what the American Museum of Natural History, their ornithologist, Frank Chapman, he saw how many birds were being killed specifically for their feathers for the ladies' hat trade.
Right.
And he said, this is a problem. The populations can't sustain this.
Mm-hmm.
And that is sort of where the movement kicked off, of letting it be known that, well, you can't just take and take and take and take from nature and not give anything back. So how do we protect the birds? How do we figure out a system where people can go hunt and fish and be a part of the landscape without stripping it totally?
Right.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of that came out of New York City, and we've got the Adirondack Park, which was sort of this proto-national park. It's not a true national park, but it was sort of how can we keep an area of land as it is and be somewhere in between conservation and preservation, where people can go up there and enjoy it and they can hunt and fish, but they know it's not going to be developed and it's not going to be changed.
Okay. All right. No, it's okay. You just no. You put it. It's great. No, you put it in a nutshell. And my listeners I almost don't let a week go by that I don't bring up North American wildlife conservation model.
Mm-hmm.
And you brought up the deal about birds and feathers and ladies' hats and all that, and that's pretty much where the carrier pigeon went, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And the passenger pigeon went away. It's extinct now because of the commercial market. But with all that, you also mentioned Teddy Roosevelt, and with all that, it brought all of that had to happen, and now, well, it didn't have to happen, but it was a turn of events that brought about the North American wildlife conservation model, and that is what has sustained wildlife to the point that we can enjoy it today. It's the exact type of thinking that you're talking about. Okay, so we also had, and this is something that we talk about. When you talk about messaging, you talk about, how do you approach people? How do you provide the message? How do you formulate the message so that, folks that didn't grow up out here in these rural areas understand the conservation?
So a lot of what I think the hunting and fishing community is a little nervous about is they have a tendency to think everyone who's not a hunter is an anti-hunter, and it's really a different situation in that most people don't think about hunting. Now, maybe they have a knee-jerk negative reaction because of whatever preconceived notions they have or whatever they've seen in the media or movies or things like that, but I have the pleasure of talking about these issues to people who really are an open book on the situation, and it's all new to them, and they're unbelievably receptive to the message. I give a lot of these talks in New York City and in urban areas, and I am met generally with just real fascination and interest. And at the end of my talks, a lot of people come up to me and they ask how can they get involved, because, and I think especially in urban areas, people are used to thinking about their food a little bit more. They go to those farmers markets and they think about, oh, well, I want to buy this organic, or I want to know where this came from. Oh, this came from a farm up the Hudson River, things like of that nature. And they can put those pieces together of, well, when I spend money on a hunting license, where is that going? When I spend money on my hunting equipment or my duck stamp, I basically get to pay Mother Nature to take care of landscapes, habitats, and animals. And that's where I want my money going. Now, I'm not always successful. You're always successful when you go to the grocery store. You're not always successful in the woods.
Sure.
But people understand that connection. And even if they never, ever go hunting, really what I want people to think about is becoming advocates for the lifestyle rather than being afraid of it or what is worse is uninformed. I've had friends who truly they thought, okay, you buy a hunting license and that's it. Then you can just go hunt anywhere, anytime, shoot anything. They truly don't understand how regulated it is and how our system, the system that is governed by the model, is truly the most successful system of wildlife conservation in the entire world. There are other countries that function on a similar platform, but it is not baked into their laws and their money, which we have here in the United States. It's really filtered into state and federal levels. It's an incredible system, and I love telling people about it.
Okay, all right. And I think, yes, we are. It is baked into our system, and it's a good thing. And I go back again to that 1937 model, and that's the good part about all of it. I know Africa would like for it to be baked into their system. One of their big problems is everybody keeps sticking their nose in their business. I got a kick out of it last year. I think it was the country of Niger offered to bring 20,000 elephants to Germany at the CITES conference. Everybody's got this wrong idea that somehow or another elephants are some type of threatened species, and it's nowhere close. Niger said, we got a surplus here. We'll send you 20,000. And so we're, ask Germany, where would you like for us to deliver these things?
Yep. It's a great story. I love that story. And it does, there are fewer elephants than there used to be, but there are areas where there are too many elephants for that given area. And I think that's what people don't understand. They just think of elephants in general. Right. Now, I'd love to fill Southern Africa with more elephants, but the question is, where are you going to put them? Yeah. And people don't seem to understand that it has to be very nuanced now. There's a lot of people. There's been a lot of expansion in Africa, and in order for the elephants to be successful, they need to be put in places where they're not going to bother humans. And that is getting more and more difficult as humans continue to expand throughout Southern Africa. So people don't like to think about hunting in Africa being good for the animals. But if you can get to a point where you can explain that system of value and how the more value those animals have, the more likely they are to stick around. Absolutely. People get that, but you do have to have the opportunity to have that conversation. And that can be a difficult thing. If someone sees a photograph of a hunter with a dead elephant, it's so easy to make their blood boil. And on a certain level, you can understand it. But if you have the time, if you have the ability to have that fuller conversation about, look, let me tell you why there are more elephants in areas, greater biodiversity in areas that have hunting than in areas that don't, I can walk you through that step by step. The trouble is people don't normally encounter that information on their own. So they get to see a photograph that really stirs them up, and I understand that. But then there's nothing to counteract that, because there's no photograph. You can't just show a photograph of a thriving ecosystem and have that picture tell the story. You have to have someone tell the actual story, or else people won't know it. Right.
All right, I tell you what, let's take a quick break and thank the folks who let us come on here every Saturday morning. We'll be right back. Thank goodness for all the great sponsors we have here at News from Camp House. H-E-B Food Stores. That's Stephen Tice at H-E-B. He helps me. He helps the community. He's a great man. I'm so thankful H-E-B loosened him up, lets him go around and sponsor a few things. H-E-B's got all your food needs. It's the greatest food store we got here in Columbus. Thank goodness for H-E-B. First State Bank. You go over to First State Bank, they'll take care of all your loans, all your deposits, your savings, anything you need. Bunch of great hometown people over there. You got Celia Tobias, John Pollock. Everybody over there is looking out for you. Miss Barbara Barta. It's a great bunch of folks at the First State Bank is also sponsoring News from the Camp House. First State Bank takes care of all my business. Baumgart Agency, Susan Baumgart at the Baumgart Agencies, her and Germania. She told me to plug Germania. Germania is a insurance that she likes to everybody to know about, the Baumgart agencies. Miss Susan and I are classmates, being classmates. She got me out of high school, sat right beside her, put us in alphabetical order where I could copy. And Susan Baumgart over at the Baumgart Agency, taking care of all your insurance needs. Lyco Realty, one of the original sponsors of News from the Camp House. Lyco Realty, the oldest real estate company in the county, and for the last 3 years voted the favorite realtor in the county. Lyco Realty, that's Miss Kimberly Johnson, that's Crockett's granddaughter. More kinfolks and classmates and great people from Colorado County. People from Colorado County helping people from Colorado County. That's great. Oh, thank goodness for all these wonderful people come to me want to be sponsors for News from the Camp House. Good morning and welcome to the second half of this week's News from the Camp House. This is Herman Brune. I'm here this morning with Brandt MacDuff. He is from Brooklyn, New York, and he is in New York City trying to spread around wildlife conservation message. And okay, so that's the key word, is message and messaging, and that's kind of where we ended up in the second half, because to me, all right, I'll give you an example. Ages ago, I had a mother-in-law, and it's been a long, long time ago, and her little daughter came up to me on Christmas Eve, said, meat's getting low in the freezer, need you to put some more meat in the freezer. And I picked up my .6 and I went down to the river bottom. And by a little before dark, I was back. I hung a buck up and wound up putting them in the freezer. Mother-in-law comes along and looks at that. She's like, man, she said, I couldn't stand there and watch you. I couldn't go outside. I could never help you do that. She said, but do you know how damn sexy that was? That some, daughter told you that you're low on meat and you walked off with a gun and come back with something. She goes, that's what her idea of what a man's supposed to amount to. And I got tickled. But so I don't know, people are people, but when I'm talking to folks, urban folks who weren't raised butchering hogs and hunting and doing things, I don't always know what perspective they have, how they're going to take me. And especially when we start talking wildlife conservation, it's such a ticklish conservation message. You have to be so careful that you don't offend someone by saying something like, when something loses value, it ceases to exist. And that's true, but you can offend people with simple language.
It seems callous, doesn't it? It
Right.
seems callous. The idea of if it pays, it stays seems callous. But it's really the exact same thing as saying voting with your dollar. And people do like that. Mm-hmm. They do like to vote with their dollar. And so I think about my dollars and where I spend them and who that's going, what is that dollar going to make more of? And a lot of people in the city get that because they can be real snobby about their food. Mm-hmm. And so if you think about someone who is really making it a point to go to the farmer's market or only eating organic or only eating, maybe they get a beef share from one of the little regenerative ranches upstate, up the Hudson. Okay. They'll send out, you can buy a beef share and they'll send you your share in the mail and you can put that right in your freezer. And okay. So, and that helps them because you're paying ahead of time, you're buying in bulk, and then you're getting local regenerative raised cattle from up the Hudson, and so you can really feel good about who you're supporting and where your food comes from. And people will understand that message of hunting through the food. That venison diplomacy really works. I've never had a friend turn up their nose when I bring over venison. People are usually really excited about it. What have you got in the freezer? And so that message of food makes a lot of sense to them. And that really is a fantastic gateway for anything, because truly, no matter what you eat something. So where did that come from, and what does the money go towards? What will it make more of? So if I think about someone who's eating a soybean patty that was made by the Nestle company that came out of the freezer section of the grocery store, well, I don't want to support that company. I don't want to eat the ultra processed and go through the factories that had to go through. So something somewhere had to die for food to get to my table, no matter what it was. There's no such thing as a bloodless meal. So you can either take responsibility for it and follow that cycle. Where did that come from? Where's my money going? And it's not a difficult thing for people to follow in their own head. I pay for my license. Here's where that money goes. My duck stamp. Here's where that money goes. And my hunting equipment. Here's a little hidden excise tax in there, and the money goes here. Mm-hmm. So I'm paying Mother Nature. I'm putting my value into the habitat. And sure, maybe I take a deer off the landscape, but that's been baked into the system. They know how many deer they can lose per season without harming the population, and it's all very thought out. And when people hear that message, they get it and they like it and they support it. Maybe they'll never become a hunter, and that's fine. Not everybody can be. We know it's a lot of time and or a lot of money if you're going to become a hunter and make that part of your lifestyle. But for me, it is making more advocates who understand this cycle and lifestyle and why people want to do it. I didn't start hunting until 8 years ago. So I'm relatively new myself, and I came to hunting because of the work I do in conservation and conservation history.
All right. Yes. All right. You made a remark about there's no such thing as a bloodless meal. You want to elaborate on that?
Sure. So if you're eating any kind of vegetable, green, wheat product, whatever, a very, very, very intensive agricultural system went into producing that product. And if you are tilling fields, if you're going through a field with a thresher, if you are removing habitat because you have to create fields big enough to produce the amount of soybeans, the amount of wheat, the amount of product that those type of agricultural systems require, you are removing habitat from the wild, and you are getting, with every thresher or whatever, you're churning up baby bunnies or getting foxes caught up in hay bales and churning up little fawns and things like that. Right. But it's easy for people not to know that or not to think about that, because they're thinking more about that end product. Here's my little soybean patty on my plate. And for a lot of people, that's just easier to think about than the part of an animal that might be on their plate or where that came from. And just like anything else, there are grades of how animal friendly, how environmentally friendly is this or that. And so I always strive for as much of both as I possibly can. What's really animal friendly, what's really environmentally friendly. I tell people to eat bison every chance they get. You can get bison at the grocery store very easily now. If you're eating bison, that means it came from a landscape that can sustain bison, and the landscape need bison. It's great for the grassland prairie, of which we've lost so much of throughout the United States. It's one of the least protected habitats on Earth, because honestly, if you look at it, grassland prairie is not that interesting. People don't see it as the beautiful landscape that it is. Right.
Well, the biggest part of it's farmland now, unless you get up in north central Montana and out in there in the Missouri Breaks. And there's been a big push for a big buffalo country up there. They're really trying to set a bunch of country aside, and there's big good arguments both ways on that. But Yes, no, I hear you. I hear you. And bison to me, I can't tell the difference between that and beef, really.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And the more bison you have on the landscape and people eating them, the more value there is in having them.
Sure.
And they're pretty good at taking care of themselves. And so I eat beef, I eat bison, I eat whatever I am lucky enough to bring home from the woods.
Mm-hmm.
But what I like to leave people with is that they're way more open to having this conversation. The trick is the people who understand the model and the people who understand the value in being a part of nature, not just an outsider. It's those people who really care about it and wanting it to be healthy.
How do you create forums in the city? Who do you talk to? Where do you go? Who is your conduit to get to people?
Well, certainly the book has been great for opening a lot of those doors, but because I think especially because of my background being someone who's not affiliated formally with any one particular group, and because I come from the city and have that ear of people who may not hunt or may be skeptical of hunting, come from an urban space, I get the opportunity to talk about wildlife conservation communications. And I have done work for Howl and work for SCI, work for the Vermont Department of Natural Resources, just doing that sort of conservation communication. And I give lectures in bars. I speak in pubs, and they do sort of a drink and learn style thing where you can go to a bar and have a drink and listen to an expert give a lecture in their field. It could be astrophysics or whatever, but there's so much about wildlife conservation, the effective mechanisms of wildlife conservation that people don't understand, and they love animals, so they're fascinated by it. So really, it's not difficult to get the ear of people, but they will, if you come in and say, well, I'm a lifelong hunter and I've hunted on every continent, and they will view that person with more skepticism than they will me, who came to it later.
Right.
Exactly. So I try to use that to my advantage, because what I always say is, it's not like a used car salesman. I'm not trying to sell you I'm not trying to trick you into buying a piece of junk. The product that I have, this understanding of wildlife conservation in America and the connection to hunting and how that works, it's a good product that you're going to like, but I do have to trick you into listening to me, maybe.
Okay. All right. Tell you what, we're out of time, but I sure appreciate you being with us this morning.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Folks, that was Brandt MacDuff. He's up there spreading the message in Brooklyn, New York. And apparently he's getting a following. He's got a book out, The Shotgun Conservationist, Why Environmentalists Should Love Hunting. All right. Hope you enjoyed this weekend's edition, News from the Camp House. It's also been brought to us by the Shaw's Bend Country Club, Shaw's Bend Social Club, the country club for folks who don't have a country club. All right. Now, everybody, go out, have a big weekend, have lots of fun, be safe, and y'all just remember, pretty much in a day is sure a good day to be out in the woods.